name is Kristi Potter, and on the panel with me I have Dominique Dubey and Zavier Smith. Today we will be discussing 4 movies. First we have Metropolis, and then next we have 2001 A Space Odyssey, followed by A Ghost in a Shell, and then next Brazil.
Metropolis, directed by Fritz Lang, was released in the year 1927. The movie sets in the somewhat distant future, where huge towers and vast wealth is a playground to a ruling class living in luxury in the city of Metropolis. It is the home of our hero Frida, the son of John Fredersen, who is the master of Metropolis. Haunted by what he has seen, he tries to confront his father, only to find that the man he loves and respects believes that it is right for the workers to live the way they do. Frida decides to do something about it.
So, what are your views on the film? What do you think of it?
It's interesting. Like, it's a really old film. It's black and white. It's in subtitles.
Yeah.
And no talking, which is definitely a challenge because we're used to movies nowadays that are a lot different. But it had some really good aspects of it, and being a somewhat of a sci-fi film, it's kind of incredible that because of how good of a film it is with such limited technology that they had, and it's still reasonably watchable today. But it was alright.
Yeah. And how about you, Dominique?
I definitely agree. The advanced technology for its time is outstanding. I mean, if you watch it, you're not going to think that, but when you really analyse it, it's quite interesting. And the film itself had lots of symbols and influences. It really influenced films now. Blade Runner, Brazil, both heavily influenced by the movie. Blade Runner, there's a shot in this film, Metropolis, where planes are flying across the sky. Now, obviously, they can't film that. It was all CGI kind of thing. But Blade Runner actually replicated that scene in their film, and it was kind of like a way of respecting the film itself.
So, in terms of themes, what are shown in the movie?
Religion, it's a really massive part of it. You've got the Tower of Babel, Maria.
And it's the Tower of Babel, sorry, is that like the reference to the Tower of Babylon? Sort of like that?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool. Maria, she's seen as this angelic character, so she's an angel. She's telling all the workers that their saviour will come, which is meant to be Freuden's son. He's meant to be the saviour. Yeah.
And that's
sad.
Yeah, well, that's really interesting because Freude himself is seen as this, big demigod, and he's almost, the big bad guy at the top of this big, capitalist world.
Definitely.
So it's interesting that his sort of the saviour is his son.
In terms of society and good versus evil, obviously that kind of theme is portrayed.
Yeah.
How is it?
Well, yeah, it's definitely portrayed. It's sort of like a capitalist society. It's very top heavy, which is shown by John and his sort of boys club where they're all dancing and laughing and stuff. And then you contrast that to the workers, and you see like the situations where they're living, where it's living in the underground villages, and just the work itself that they have to do. Like they live down in the machine, working the machine that actually feeds off them. And they work themselves to death. They work really hard. And yeah, so that sort of shows the society. And yeah, Fredersen is sort of the top dog of this society.
I have to admit, when I watched the film, the way that the working men were operating the machines, they kind of worked towards pattern.
Yeah.
It was very intriguing, and I actually found it really captivating to watch the film in that way. It made it more exciting as well. But definitely a really good movie as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. Something interesting about the film is, as I said about influences, it's had lots of influences. The way it's impacted pop culture, which is surprising. You've got people like Madonna, Britney Spears, their costumes, even Madonna has 2 music videos, Material Girl and Express Yourself, and they both have influences from Metropolis, which is really surprising, especially the robot. Her technology, futuristic, the metal, that designs a lot of costumes.
The robot itself is a really interesting character because it sort of symbolises the battle between good and evil in the film. You have the 2 Marias.
Yeah.
You have the first Maria, which John has first introduced her, and she's she's very saint-like, and she looks after the kids, and she's just this and like Dom said, this angelic symbol. Whereas the second one is the symbol of sinning and debauchery, and she just goes off and corrupts people into doing bad things. So it's a really interesting portrayal.
No, yeah, I can agree with that.
2001 A Space Odyssey was directed by Stanley Kubrick and released in the year 1968. A Space Odyssey is a masterpiece of a movie and among the greatest sci-fi movies of all time. However, it is a very complex film telling the story of human evolution, both past and present future. The storyline is presented by monoliths, which are big black walls of stone being placed on Earth by someone or something, which sparks the evolution of mankind.
Cool. And next film we will be discussing is the 2001 A Space Odyssey. Zavier, get the ball rolling again. What do you think?
It's quite a slow-paced film, but there's a lot going on in sort of every shot, and there's a lot of symbols and icons. What do you think, Dom?
I actually agree with you. Like, a lot of people could say it's slow paced, but there are so many messages that the film's trying to say.
Yeah. So the essence of the film is it's about the evolution of mankind, which is it's a big concept, you know.
Evolution of mankind. I kind of get that as well.
Especially there's
Probably
so much controversy over the evolution.
Definitely.
Yeah.
The film centers on a lot of icons. Sort of one of the obvious ones is the monoliths that appear in the films.
The black.
Yeah, the
Black
big
walls,
rock
yeah.
things.
Yeah.
So the first monolith appears for a tribe of apes, and when one of the apes touches it, they sort of take the next evolutionary step, which is the use of tools, which is symbolized by the bone.
What is it? Oh,
Yeah.
smashing of the
So
bone.
the bone, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So the bone becomes the ape's tool, which before that they had no tool, and it showed like they were the weaker tribe.
Yeah.
But now with the use of the bone, they're far stronger, and they start to hunt, and they take control of the water hole, which sort of symbolizes the first step along that human evolution path.
Yeah, definitely. I
Which
can
is a
agree
main
with that.
thing. And then, another cool symbol is at the end of that scene, a bone is sort of tossed up into the air and it spins, and then it transforms into a space shuttle,
Yeah.
which is really cool, and it symbolizes the sort of two extremes of the tools used by mankind. Whereas the first one is, it's a simple bone, it's a stick, it's a club, it's the simplest of tools, and the second is a spaceship, which even for us today is still the most advanced tool we have, which is really cool, I thought.
Could you say it also symbolizes how much we're capable of?
Yeah.
You know, like in our progression, that we could go from a simple bone to a massive ship.
Definitely.
You know, it shows how smart and intelligent human beings are.
Definitely.
And in a way, it's kind of like the bone and how like apes, like a lot of people say that like humans came from like monkeys and all that kind of stuff, and it just kind of questions that kind of theory as well in a way.
Yeah.
No, it's very captivating.
So then, following on from that, we find the second monolith, which is on the moon,
Yeah.
and that one sort of points towards a signal coming from a third monolith, which is a way on Jupiter. And so this is again another step in human evolution, going from the first monolith and the bone to the spaceship, and then the next one is of course Hal, is the next step in human evolution.
Yeah. Now, Hal, he's made to be like a human. Was it intentional by the director?
I think it was, because it sort of sets itself up as a competition between Hal and the human, which is Dave.
It kind of raises the question. I mean, like as technology grows and it gets so advanced, like we see in this movie how Hal ended up controlling something, and how far can it go, where technology will be in control of us rather than the other way around.
Yeah. I think the interesting thing about Hal being very human is a lot of films that are about technology and artificial intelligence, they don't provide emotions or anything like that. I think that has to do a lot with men fearing technology and what it's capable of.
Oh, yeah, I can agree.
Because Hal in the film is capable of taking over that ship.
He has ego and pride
And
that's easily
that is
established as well. Yeah.
Yeah,
it does.
exactly.
That's a very good point. So this sort of sets itself up in, you see the culmination of Hal's part of the film, where Dave is pulling out Hal's memory cartridges, and destroying Hal after Hal has made a mistake and killed the other astronaut. And so this sort of symbolizes humankind in Dave conquering their greatest tool, Hal, which leads to the monolith creators, whoever they are, seeing Dave and humankind ready to take that next step. And this is where it gets really trippy in the film, where all of a sudden Dave is an old man living in a bedroom in sort of medieval France, which sort of symbolizes him dying, and he's lying in his deathbed and a monolith appears. next thing you know, Dave has sort of turned into a baby, but it's not a baby so much, it's more of a star child. And so what this is, which I know it's a lot to get your head around.
Yeah,
and that
I recall this in the movie actually.
Yeah.
I was like, what is going
So
on? Yeah.
And that is Stanley Kubrick to a T. He's, him and Mr. Clark, the co-writer,
Yeah.
they sort of said, if you come out of this film with all your questions answered, we've failed. They want to raise questions. They want you to think after this.
Yeah.
It doesn't want to be a simple film.
No, yeah, definitely.
So what did you see the baby as? So could you see Earth as like a cradle for this baby, and it's more, it's showing what we're capable of more in evolution? Was that kind of
Yeah,
the idea?
that's a great point.
Yeah.
Sort of exactly it. What is happening with the baby, the whole symbolism of the baby, is humankind leaving Earth and Dave leaving humankind behind and sort of transcending into this next evolutionary phase, which it's been sort of called Star Child by people, but we don't really have a name for it because obviously we haven't got there yet. But so it's the next step in the progression from ape to human to Star Child or whatever Dave has become.
I actually find it really interesting how, like, in the beginning, you see an ape, his what's most feared weapon is like a bone, from a dead carcass and everything. And then, like, he's using that to get control and leadership from other things as well. But then, like, later on in the film, you have Dave, and then you have his, like, most feared kind of thing, which is, like, Hal taking over and everything. And it just shows you from so much, like, earlier time and beforehand how much it's changed from, like, what's happening now and everything because
It's
of the
almost
progression.
a full circle, isn't it?
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Them
It's very-
finding an item that they can use to attack, yet now they've created something that's attacking them.
turn almost like, it's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, which I think it's just one of those things that makes the film quite outstanding. Another really cool aspect of this film is there's sort of like a pseudo montage at the end where it's when Dave is dying and it's summing up his life and his existence.
Yeah.
But instead of doing like a flashback scene, which is quite typical of movies, it does it in quite a weird way where Dave's sort of like experiencing his life from sort of like a third person,
Oh, really?
which is when he sees himself as an astronaut. So that's just another really cool
Very
thing
cool.
from the very creative mind of Stanley Kubrick.
No, yeah, he's a brilliant director.
Yeah, so
All
overall,
credit to him.
just an excellent film. Yeah.
Definitely.
Ghost in the Shell was directed by Mamoru Oshii and was released in 1995. In the movie, the year is set in 2029, where the barriers of the human world are separated by the use of the automatic control systems in both machines and living things. Motoko Kusanagi is the protagonist in the film, who is often referred to as a major as she holds the position of squad commanding officer. Motoko and her team, Section 9, are a secret police force who are investigating a highly wanted hacker known as the Puppet Master.
The next movie that we're going to be reviewing is Ghost in the Shell. Now, this movie is really, really interesting. It's very dense, and you need to watch it 2 or 3 times just to really understand everything. Because there's a lot of messages that are set in between the film, in between the lines and all that kind of stuff. But the title of the film itself really got my attention, Ghost in a Shell. It kind of makes you question what a ghost is. And, like, from what I kind of gather, I kind of believe that, like, when we think about our own bodies and our own personalities and everything, if, let's just say we've got a ghost and we've got a shell, I would say that the human body is our shell, and then that our ghost would probably be, our conscience, our personality, our thoughts, our memories, all that kind of stuff. And it's very interesting to see how in the movie itself you see these robots in a way, they're being made and they're having memories, like a brain planted inside their head and everything. The ghost, yeah, precisely, into a body, which is their shell,
Yeah.
And I just found that really interesting and everything like that. And in one certain scene, there's a body hanging from, cords and power things. And basically, the body is kind of made up of wires and cables that kind of make it look like a real human body. But obviously it isn't because it's a robot, but it has that kind of effect, Very interesting as well. Now, it kind of made me wonder with the purpose of the movie and everything. I feel like the director or writer, potentially kind of included their kind of opinion, and it kind of makes me wonder what their opinion is, but I kind of feel like I have a hunch, but like potentially, possibly, maybe purpose was to kind of let us question whether or not our personalities, our ghost can still function without a shell or body. And, the character herself, Motoko, she questions that. She, since she is a robotic person, she kind of questions that as well, whether, she is a human and what it means to be a human. Yeah.
I think this, like you said, this movie sort of raises quite a few philosophical questions. Is there any difference between a human body and a robot's body? Is it just a shell? Are both essentially just a shell? Is a robot and a body just a shell? And is the
because the shells both work perfectly,
Yeah, exactly. So,
and like even with when you take the ghost out, you still feel those emotions, your thoughts, your memories. You still have them all intact.
Yeah.
So it really makes you wonder, like, can your ghost still function without your shell or your body? It's a very, very strange kind of discussion and like kind of thing to arise from a film like this, but that's what it had me wondering, and it proves so that the character Motoko, she indeed felt that way as well, because she wanted to know like what it means to be a human, and if like even if you do have the ghost of like your personality and everything, if that does make you somewhat that person.
The interesting thing you're saying is that she wants to know what it's like being a human as being a robot. But when she talks about humans, she thinks about, you can breathe, you've got all those kind of attributes. But the thing about going back to a ghost in a shell, we wouldn't say we're living just because we're breathing and all that. Us living is doing things, and our personality is impacted by the way that we live. And I feel like they're saying it as a robot, but you can also relate it back to human beings.
Referring back to like the purpose of the writer or director, the puppet master, he's taking away the brains and leaving them with no memory. It kind of just really makes you think about it, like if the writer or director has actually portrayed it through the puppet master in some ways. But hands down, do you feel like the world is dominated by technology?
100%.
Is it? Just a little debate.
Yeah, I think so. And I think part of the sort of musical aspect of the film is also, it's like a contrast, because it's kind of like, it's simple and it's childish with, these soft voices and then the simple drums. I know it's obviously very complex, but it's reasonably simple.
Yeah.
And it's like kind of contrasting from the very manly technological world that it sort of resides in.
It sounds, yeah. And like also when, I'm pretty sure at the beginning of the film you've got the blackness with the green kind of coded writing as well, and it's very effective. So as soon as you begin the movie, you kind of know what you're getting into, No, yeah. It's very, very good movie. Leaves you thinking of what really a human is and how we do decide to live,
Yeah.
Very, very good movie.
Cool.
Brazil was directed by Terry Gilliam and released in 1985. The movie is a dark comedy set in an alternate reality. The world is ruled by the ministry, which serves as a place where everything is ultra-organized and super efficient. However, everyone seems to be happy only because everything is convenient. The film is a plunge into the deepening insanity of a man who is having a war between his dreams and the reality of a burdensome world which is too efficient for its own good.
Last but not least, we have Brazil. Now, Dominique, this is your element.
Sam, he's up in the clouds. He loves daydreaming. I mean, his main daydream, it relates back to Icarus and the sun, which to me was very interesting because he lives in such a dull industrial world. They don't really respect people that have imaginations or like question the norm. And with his daydreams, Icarus, going back to Icarus, he's escaping the king. This is the storyline. And he's flying up into the sky, and once he reaches the sun, he dies. He hits the sun and dies. And that was so interesting because the whole time you're trying to work out what is the symbol of the sun. It's not until you meet Jill that you realize that she is what the sun is. And so by reaching her, he's going to die. And this whole film is about him trying to get her.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting, especially because
Like a love
Jill,
story.
it is. It's a bittersweet love story.
Oh, yeah.
I think another interesting little thing, you kind of mentioned it there, is Sam's trying to escape the king.
Yeah.
And I think this is almost a parallel in escaping his boss, which is in the real world. So the sort of king is symbolized by his bomb. And so there's his boss, sorry. And yeah, so there's a lot of sort of cross parallels, obviously, between Sam's real world and his imagination. And Sam being the sort of up in the clouds person, they kind of get mixed up.
Yeah.
At this point.
And definitely. And Jill, she's quite interesting because she represents women very powerfully. She's strong-minded. She's against the corruption of the government. It's very amazing, really, if you think about it.
It's good to have a strong female character.
It really is. And back in the 80s, I feel like films don't represent women in that strong way.
Very cool character. Now, in terms of relation to reality, any kind of connection at all, or?
Definitely. I think the main message was to say that technology is having such a big impact on our lives to the point where people are losing jobs, we're becoming so reliant and consumed by it.
In terms of the lighting, your thoughts?
I loved the lighting, and that is such a silly thing to say. Who watches a film and goes, wow, that lighting was amazing.
Yes.
But Terry Gilligan is
It's lit.
Terry Gilligan is really well known for his lighting and camera angles. He always does these very abstract and extreme shots, and Brazil just shows that perfectly. For the lighting, it's computer screens, neon lights.
Yep.
It gives this very futuristic feel and unnatural glow, which
Again, it's
represents-
another parallel,
Exactly, and it represents technology.
If you walk into any office, in a city, it's the same. It's lit by
Glow.
bright blue screens, So it's,
Exactly.
It's very
It's
interesting.
quite interesting. And for camera angles, there's extreme ones. Definitely down hallways and stairwells.
Yeah.
That's shown. There's extreme high shots. I feel like to me that showed this never-ending pathway kind of thing, because that's how it showed he was continuing down this hallway. And I felt like that really relates to the story itself and his character development, because he's trying so hard to get to this goal, and it feels like it's so far away. It's quite interesting.
Look, guys, it's been absolutely great having you on the show. Really good discussion. Thank you, Dominique. Thank you, Zavier.
no worries. Thank you for having
We've
us.
run out of time, but I'll see you next week, yeah?
Yeah, definitely.
We've got Justin Bieber, Never Say Never. We've got Sharknado. We've also got High School Musical, and of course, last but not least, Twilight.
Yeah, awesome.
Woo,
Can't wait.
woo. Cool. See you guys
Cool.
next week.
Thank you.